You've been carrying so much today, haven't you? The weight of everything sits right there between your shoulders. Maybe in your chest, where breath gets caught sometimes. It's okay. You can let it rest here, just for now. Welcome to this quiet moment. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. To this gentle space we're creating together, where nothing is required of you, except perhaps to breathe. You know, 2,500 years ago, someone else sat down feeling exactly like you do right now. His name was Siddhartha, though the world would come to know him as the Buddha. But tonight, he's just someone who understands. Someone who knew what it felt like when sleep wouldn't come, when thoughts kept spinning, when tomorrow felt too heavy. He found something, a way of being that changed everything, not through force, but through a kind of letting go. And that's what we'll explore together, as gently as clouds crossing the night sky, as softly as your breath beginning to slow just a little. There's nowhere else you need to be, nothing else you need to do. Just listen, just rest. The Buddha's wisdom has waited this long. It can hold you through the night. Imagine for a moment you're walking through a garden. Not just any garden, but one where every flower blooms perfectly, where no leaf ever browns, where even the shadows fall just so. This was young Siddhartha's world. A prince born into perfection, or what his father thought was perfection. His father, the king, had created something like what we might call today a carefully curated life. You know this feeling, don't you? The way we build our days. Scroll past the difficult news. Schedule our time to avoid the uncomfortable conversations. Create routines that keep us safely distant from life's sharper edges. Siddhartha lived in 3 palaces, one for each season. Always the perfect temperature, always surrounded by beauty, youth, and laughter. The story begins before he was even born. When his mother was pregnant, she had a dream. A white elephant with 6 tusks entered her side. The wise men said this meant her child would be extraordinary. But extraordinary can mean many things. The astrologers gathered when he was born. They examined the baby's features, the lines on his tiny palms. And they told the king something that made his heart both swell and sink. This child will either rule the world or leave it all behind to seek truth. Can you imagine being a parent and hearing that? Your child might become everything you dream of, or they might walk away from everything you've built. The king did what any loving parent might do. He tried to tip the scales. He decided to make the world so beautiful, so perfect, that his son would never want to leave. Every morning, gardeners would slip through the grounds before dawn. They removed any flower that showed signs of wilting, any leaf that had begun its journey back to earth. The prince must see only life in its fullness, never its fading. The servants were carefully chosen. Only the young, only the healthy, only the beautiful. If someone fell ill, they were quietly moved to another part of the kingdom. If someone grew old, they found work elsewhere. It's strange, isn't it? How familiar this feels. We do this too, in our own ways. We filter our photos until every flaw disappears. We share only the highlights, never the struggles. We build our own palace walls made of busy schedules and careful smiles. The young prince grew up in this bubble of beauty. He learnt to read and write on golden tablets. He mastered archery by shooting at targets made of flowers. He rode horses that were trained never to stumble. But something was happening inside him. Something his father couldn't control. Have you ever had everything you're supposed to want and still felt empty? That was Siddhartha at 16, at 20, at 25. The older he grew, the stronger this feeling became. He would stand at the palace windows for hours, looking out at the walls that kept the world away. Sometimes servants found him there at dawn, having stood there all night. "What are you looking for, my prince?" they would ask. He couldn't answer because he didn't know. He was looking for something he'd never seen, longing for something he couldn't name. This is so human, isn't it? This longing for something more. You felt it too. Maybe when you achieved that goal you'd worked so hard for, and it didn't fill you the way you thought it would. Maybe when you bought that thing you'd saved for, and the happiness lasted about as long as the drive home. The Buddha would later say, "The mind is like water. When agitated, it becomes difficult to see. When calm, everything becomes clear." But young Siddhartha's mind was anything but calm. Despite the perfect gardens, despite the constant celebrations, or perhaps because of them, his father noticed the restlessness. So he did what seemed logical. He gave his son more entertainment, more luxury, more distractions. At 16, Siddhartha was married to a beautiful princess named Yasodhara. She was kind and loving, everything a prince could want in a wife. But the emptiness remained. They filled his days with activities. Morning, lessons with the finest teachers. Afternoon, sports and games with other young nobles. Evening, feasts and performances. Every moment scheduled, every hour filled. Sound familiar? How many of us do the same thing? We wake up to our phones. We fill every quiet moment with podcasts, videos, messages. We're afraid of what might bubble up if we just sat still. Siddhartha was 29 when everything changed. 29, with a newborn son. He should have been at his happiest. New father, future king, surrounded by luxury. But holding his baby son, he didn't feel joy. He felt fear, because looking at that innocent face, he thought, "What kind of world am I bringing you into? What is this life I'm preparing you for?" He named his son Rahula. It means fetter or chain. Imagine naming your child Chain. It tells you everything about his state of mind. He loved his son, don't misunderstand. But love can feel like bondage when you're drowning. And Siddhartha was drowning in a life that looked perfect from the outside, but felt hollow within. This is the part of the story that speaks to so many of us. Because we know this feeling. We know what it's like to have everything look right on paper. Good job, check. Nice home, check. Family, check. But still, something whispers, "Is this all there is?" The servants began to worry. The prince barely ate at feasts. He would start conversations, then trail off mid-sentence. He walked the gardens at night when everyone else slept. One night, a musician was playing for him, a beautiful melody on the veena. Suddenly, Siddhartha asked, "What happens when the string is too tight?" "It breaks, my lord," the musician replied. "And too loose?" "It makes no music." "Then how do you find the right tension?" "By feeling, my lord. By listening. The string itself tells you when it's right." This conversation stayed with him. Years later, it would become part of his teaching about the middle way. But that night, it was just another reminder that he was living at extremes. His life was a string pulled too tight, about to snap. He began to ask questions that made others uncomfortable. Why do we feast when surely someone somewhere is hungry? Why do we dance when surely someone somewhere is crying? What lies beyond these walls? The courtiers would change the subject. His father would order more entertainment. His wife would hold him closer at night. But questions don't go away just because we ignore them. They grow. They put down roots. They wake us at 3 in the morning. They follow us through our carefully planned days. This is where the Buddha's story becomes your story. Because haven't we all built our own versions of those palace walls? Maybe yours are made of morning meetings and evening emails. Maybe they're built from the endless scroll of other people's perfect lives. Maybe they're constructed from the voice that says, "Just achieve this one more thing, then you'll be happy." We're all so good at keeping ourselves busy. Busy enough to avoid the questions Siddhartha was finally asking. But here's what matters tonight. Those questions he carried led him to answers that have helped millions find peace. Not the false peace of avoiding life's truths, but the deep peace that comes from finally understanding them. His journey from that palace to enlightenment wasn't about rejecting the world. It was about seeing it clearly for the first time, and learning how to live with an open heart, even when life includes things we'd rather not see. This teaching matters tonight because you're here. Perhaps you've come simply hoping for sleep. But maybe, just maybe, you've also come carrying your own questions. The ones that visit at 3 in the morning. The ones you push away with another episode, another scroll, another task. What if those questions aren't problems to solve, but invitations to something deeper? The Buddha discovered that our suffering doesn't come from life itself. It comes from our resistance to life, from wanting things to be different than they are. And here's the gentle truth he found. Peace isn't about changing your circumstances. It's about changing your relationship with them. You don't need to leave your palace. You don't need to give up your life. You just need to see it differently. As we continue deeper into the night and deeper into his story, let yourself wonder, what walls have I built? What truths am I avoiding? And what might happen if I let them gently fall away? The morning arrived like any other. Except today, something would shatter. Not all at once, but slowly, like cracks spreading across ice. The sun painted the palace walls gold. Birds sang in the gardens. Servants moved quietly through the halls, preparing for another perfect day. But perfection was about to meet reality. There was to be a festival in the city. Siddhartha, now 29, would preside over it as crown prince. It was a duty he'd performed many times, yet today felt different. Have you ever woken knowing something was about to change? He dressed in his finest robes, jewels that caught the light, a crown that felt heavier than usual. His wife helped adjust his collar, her fingers lingering. "You seem distant," she said softly. "I'm here," he replied. But was he? Or was part of him already leaving? His father had prepared everything carefully. For weeks, servants had cleaned the route. Every stone was polished. Every banner hung straight. Only the young and beautiful would line the streets. The old, the sick, anyone who might disturb the perfect picture, they were given tasks elsewhere. It was another perfect day in a perfect life. But life has a way of finding cracks in our carefully built walls. As the royal chariot rolled through the gates, Siddhartha felt the familiar weight of expectation. Smile. Wave. Be the prince they need you to be. The crowd cheered as they always did. Flowers fell like rain. Music filled the air. And then, between one heartbeat and the next, he saw something that wasn't supposed to be there. An old man. He was standing by a doorway, perhaps confused by all the celebration. Maybe he'd forgotten about the procession. Maybe his family had forgotten to keep him inside. But there he was, real as the morning sun. Now, you might think, just an old man, that's all. But imagine you'd never seen one. Imagine you'd lived 29 years thinking people stayed young forever. That aging was a myth, like dragons or demons. This man was bent nearly double. His spine curved like a question mark. His skin hung loose like old cloth, spotted with age. His hair was white as fresh snow, thin enough to see his scalp beneath. His hands shook as he leaned heavily on a stick, each movement careful and slow. But it was his eyes that caught Siddhartha, clouded with cataracts, struggling to see. In them was a lifetime of memories, trapped in a failing body. Siddhartha gripped the edge of his chariot. "Stop," he commanded. His voice came out strangled. The world seemed to pause. The music faltered. The crowd's cheers died away. All he could see was this old man, moving slowly through the world, like time itself made visible. "What is wrong with that man?" Siddhartha whispered. "Is he ill? Has someone cursed him?" His charioteer, Channa, had been with the prince since childhood. He loved him like a brother. He wanted to lie, to protect him, but the truth has a weight that won't be denied. "He is old, my lord," Channa said gently. "This is what happens to all of us if we live long enough." "All of us?" The prince's voice was barely a breath. "This will happen to everyone?" "Yes, my lord. You, me, your wife, everyone you see here. Time touches us all. It's the one thing no one escapes. Siddhartha looked at his own hands. Young, strong, perfect. The hands that drew the bow, that held his son. But now he could see it, the future written in his skin. One day, these hands would shake. This back would bend. This hair would whiten. This body he took for granted would betray him. Have you ever had a moment like this? When you suddenly see time's mark on someone you love? Your parents' hands looking older as they reach for their coffee. The way they pause now before standing up. A photograph from 10 years ago that shows how much has changed. We live in a world that worships youth. Anti-aging creams promise to turn back time. We smooth our photos until we're unrecognizable. We dye our hair, inject our wrinkles away, desperately fighting what cannot be fought. We do everything Siddhartha's father did, try to hide from time. But there in that street, Siddhartha saw what we all must see eventually. Time is not our enemy. It's our teacher. It whispers, what matters? If time is limited, what truly matters? The chariot moved on, but Siddhartha was no longer the same. He saw the young dancers differently now. In their smooth faces, he saw future wrinkles. In their graceful movements, he saw tomorrow's shuffle. In their laughter, he heard the quaver of age. The festival continued, but for him, the music had changed. It played in a minor key now, tinged with something bittersweet. Every celebration seemed to mock the truth he'd seen. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing the old man's face. Those clouded eyes. Those trembling hands. He rose and went to his mirror, studying his reflection by candlelight. Was that a line near his eye? Was his hair not quite as thick? He touched his face, feeling for signs of time's passage. His wife stirred in bed. "What troubles you?" she asked. How could he explain? How could he tell her that he'd discovered they were all dying, just slowly? That every day was both a gift and a theft? Days passed in a strange haze. Food lost its taste. Music lost its joy. The king noticed his son's distraction and arranged another outing. "Fresh air will do you good," he said, not knowing he was sending his son toward another revelation. Again, the streets were prepared. Again, everything was perfect. The king had doubled the guards, tripled the checking. No old person would slip through this time. But perfection is fragile, and truth has many faces. This time, as they passed the market square, Siddhartha heard a sound. A moan. Weak, but unmistakable. The sound of suffering trying to stay quiet. There, propped against a wall, was a man burning with fever. His body shook with chills, even as sweat poured down his face. His skin had a grey pallor. His eyes were glazed with pain, unfocused. Each breath seemed to cost him everything. A woman knelt beside him, pressing a cloth to his forehead. "Hold on," she whispered. "Just hold on." But her eyes said she knew the truth. "What afflicts this man?" Siddhartha asked, though part of him already knew. "He is sick, my lord," Channa replied softly. Disease has found him. His body fights a battle it may not win. Can he be cured? Perhaps. Perhaps not. Sickness comes to all bodies, my lord. Some recover, some don't. The healers do what they can, but they're not gods. Siddhartha watched the sick man struggle for each breath. Yesterday, this man might have been strong. Tomorrow, he might be dead, or recovered, or lingering in between. The uncertainty was almost worse than knowing. He felt his own body then, really felt it. The heart beating without his command. The lungs filling and emptying. The stomach digesting. All of it happening without his control. All of it so fragile, so vulnerable. You know this feeling. Maybe you felt it during the pandemic. How suddenly aware we all became of every cough, every fever. How we learnt new words, ventilator, oxygen saturation, cytokine storm. How fragile our bodies seemed. How thin the line between health and sickness. Or maybe you've sat in a doctor's office, waiting for test results. Time slows down. You notice every sensation. Is that pain new? Has that always been there? In those moments, you understand what Siddhartha felt. This body we take for granted, it's not as solid as we pretend. It's more like a house of cards. Incredibly complex, beautifully balanced, but so easy to topple. The sick man's family surrounded him, trying to give comfort. But what comfort is there when your body becomes your enemy? When the very thing that carries you through life turns against you? When you can't trust your own flesh? Siddhartha wanted to help. He had wealth, power, resources. But what good was gold against fever? What could a crown do against disease? For the first time, he felt truly powerless. That night, he called the palace physicians. "Tell me about sickness," he demanded. They tried to reassure him, spoke of the four humors, of remedies and treatments. But he pressed them. Does anyone escape illness entirely? Their silence was answer enough. Even they, the healers, couldn't heal everything. Even they got sick. He began to notice things he'd never seen before. A servant's slight limp. His teacher's persistent cough. The way his mother-in-law winced when she thought no one was looking. How people sometimes paused, hand to chest, catching their breath. We hide our sickness well, don't we? We push through pain, medicate our symptoms, pretend we're fine. How are you? We ask each other. Fine, we lie. Just fine. As if admitting weakness might invite more. But Siddhartha was beginning to see through the performance. We're all walking around in bodies that could betray us at any moment. A cell could mutate. A vessel could burst. A virus could invade. And yet we plan as if we'll be healthy forever. The third sight came weeks later. By now, the king had tripled the guards, checked every person who might be near the prince's route. The city was practically under lockdown when the prince traveled. But death keeps its own schedule. It was a quiet street, a back route they'd taken to avoid crowds. As the chariot rounded a corner, they encountered a funeral procession. It was too late to turn back, too late to shield the prince's eyes. A body wrapped in white cloth carried on a simple wooden frame. So still, so absolutely still. Behind it, people wept as if their hearts would break. The sound of grief filled the air like smoke. Siddhartha had never seen a corpse. The stillness of it shocked him. This wasn't sleep. Sleep had movement, breath, the possibility of waking. This was an absence so complete, it made the air around it seem heavy. "What has happened to this person?" he asked, though the words felt strange in his mouth. Foreign. Impossible. Chana's voice was gentle as a father explaining to a child. "He has died, my lord. His life has ended." Ended? The concept was foreign. But where has he gone? Where is the person who lived in that body? "No one knows for certain, my lord. The body remains, but what made him who he was, his thoughts, his laughter, his love, that has departed. Like a bird leaving its nest. The nest remains, but the bird is gone." Siddhartha watched the mourners. Their grief was raw, primal. A woman collapsed, held up by others. Her cries weren't words, just sounds of loss. A child tugged at his mother's sari. "When will father wake up?" he asked. "When is he coming home?" The mother couldn't answer. How do you explain forever to a child? How do you explain it to yourself? "Will this happen to everyone?" Siddhartha asked, though he feared the answer. "To everyone, my lord. The young, the old, the rich, the poor. Death plays no favorites. It comes to the good and the wicked alike." "To me?" "Yes." "To my wife? My son?" "Yes, my lord." "To all who are born." The world tilted. Everything Siddhartha had built his life on crumbled. What was the point of being a prince if even kings die? What was the point of accumulating wealth if you leave it all behind? What was the point of anything if it all ended in a wooden box? This is the moment we all face eventually. Maybe it comes when we lose someone we love. The phone call at 3 a.m. The diagnosis. The accident. Maybe it comes in a quiet moment when we realize our own mortality. But it comes. And when it does, everything changes. The promotion you're chasing, does it matter if you won't be here forever? The grudge you're holding, is it worth the time it's stealing? The life you're postponing until retirement, what if you don't make it that far? Siddhartha returned to the palace, a different man. He looked at his sleeping son and saw not just life, but future loss. He held his wife and felt not just love, but coming grief. Everything beautiful was now tinged with sadness. Every joy carried the seed of sorrow. But then came the fourth sight. The one that changed everything. The one that offered hope. It was a simple morning. No festival, no procession. Siddhartha had convinced Chana to take him out quietly, without fanfare. He needed to think, to process what he'd seen. The weight of mortality sat on his shoulders like a mountain. As they passed through a quiet grove, they saw a man sitting under a tree. But this was no ordinary man. He wore simple robes, yellow-orange like the dawn. He owned nothing but a bowl. His head was shaved, his feet bare. And yet, his face held a peace Siddhartha had never seen. Not the false peace of ignorance. This man's eyes were wide open, seeing everything. The lines on his face showed he'd lived, suffered, learned. But somehow, he had found a way to be at peace with it all. "Who is this?" Siddhartha breathed. "What kind of man sits so still while the world spins in chaos?" "A seeker, my lord," Channa explained. "One who has left the ordinary world to search for truth. He seeks to understand the meaning behind age, sickness, and death. He looks for what doesn't die." Siddhartha stared. Here was someone who had seen what he'd seen, but hadn't despaired. Instead, he'd turned it into a quest. He'd taken the problem and made it a path. "May I speak with him?" Siddhartha asked. His voice held a desperate hope. The seeker opened his eyes and smiled. It was a smile that held sorrow and joy in equal measure. "Peace to you, young prince," he said. "I see the questions in your eyes." "How do you have peace?" Siddhartha burst out. "When you know about old age, sickness, death, how do you smile when everything ends? When nothing lasts?" The seeker's smile deepened. "Because I seek what lies beyond these things. The body ages, but what of consciousness? The form dies, but what of essence? I seek the deathless, the unchanging, the truth that underlies all change." "And have you found it?" "Not yet. But the seeking itself has brought me peace. To live with questions is better than to die with false answers. To search for truth is better than to hide from it." These words hit Siddhartha like lightning. All his life, he'd been given answers. Perfect, comfortable answers. But they were lies, beautiful lies. This man offered questions instead, but they were true. Hard questions that led somewhere real. "How do I begin?" Siddhartha asked. "How do I search for what doesn't die?" "You've already begun," the seeker replied. "The moment you saw truly, your journey started. Now you must decide. Will you turn away from what you've seen? Will you try to forget? Or will you walk toward understanding?" "But I have duties," Siddhartha said. "A wife, a son, a kingdom." "And what will you give them?" the seeker asked gently. "A man who lives in fear of death, or one who has found what lies beyond it? Which would serve them better?" As they returned to the palace, Siddhartha was silent. But inside, a revolution was happening. He'd seen the problem, old age, sickness, death. But he'd also seen that there might be an answer. Not an answer that denied these realities, but one that transcended them. Not an escape from life, but a way to live fully, even knowing how it ends. This is what the four sights teach us. We can't unsee reality once we've glimpsed it. We can't go back to pretending everything is fine, but we can go forward. We can seek. We can question. We can look for what doesn't age, sicken, or die within us. Not our bodies, but something deeper. Not our forms, but our essence. Tonight, as you lie here listening, you're on the same journey. You've seen your own versions of the four sights. You know about time and loss. You've felt your body's fragility. You've grieved. You've wondered what it all means. But you're also seeking. That's why you're here. Looking for peace, not despite life's difficulties, but within them. Looking for what doesn't change in a world where everything does. The Buddha's journey began with seeing clearly. Yours begins the same way. Not turning away from truth, but turning toward it. Not with despair, but with the courage to seek what lies beyond. The courage to ask the questions that matter. The wisdom to know that some questions are better than any answer. The palace slept in darkness, but Siddhartha lay wide awake, staring at the ceiling. 3 days had passed since he'd seen the seeker. 3 days of pretending everything was normal. 3 days of feeling like he was drowning in silk sheets. Have you ever known you had to make a choice that would change everything? Not a small decision, but one that would alter the course of your entire life. Maybe it was leaving a relationship that looked perfect from the outside. Maybe it was walking away from a career everyone envied. That's where Siddhartha was now. Beside him, his wife Yasodhara slept peacefully. Her hand rested on his chest, trusting. In the corner, their infant son Rahula lay in his cradle. The moonlight touched their faces, making them look like paintings of contentment. But Siddhartha felt like he was suffocating. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the old man's trembling hands, the sick man's fevered face, the stillness of death, and the seeker's peaceful smile. That smile that said there was another way. He rose quietly and walked to the window. The kingdom spread out before him, sleeping under stars. His kingdom, his responsibility, his prison. I could stay, he whispered to the night. Pretend I never saw what I saw. Go back to sleep. But can you unknow something once you know it? Can you unfeel a truth once it's touched your heart? You know you can't. Just like you can't unhear the words that changed you. Can't unsee the moment that opened your eyes. He thought of his father, the king. All those years of protection, of building walls. All that love expressed through control. His father would be devastated. His mother would weep. The kingdom would feel betrayed. But what was the alternative? To live a lie, to raise his son in the same golden cage, to perpetuate the illusion for another generation. This is the weight of awakening. When you see clearly, you can't just think of yourself. You think of everyone you love, everyone you'll disappoint. The guilt sits heavy as stone. You've felt this. When you knew you had to speak a truth that would hurt someone. When you had to choose your path over their expectations. When being true to yourself meant letting others down. Siddhartha returned to the bed. He looked at his sleeping family for a long time. His heart was breaking and expanding at the same time. Breaking because he was leaving. Expanding because he finally understood what love really meant. Love wasn't possession. It wasn't keeping people close at any cost. Sometimes love meant leaving so you could become someone worth returning to. Someone who had found truth instead of just comfort. He leaned down to kiss his son's forehead. The baby stirred but didn't wake. "I go to find answers," he whispered, "so that one day I can teach you more than just how to rule. I can teach you how to live." He wanted to kiss Yasodhara goodbye, but he knew if she woke, if she looked at him with those loving eyes, he might not have the strength to leave. So he just touched her hair gently. A blessing, a promise, an apology. This is how the hardest decisions are made. Not in grand gestures, but in quiet moments. Not with certainty, but with trembling hands. Not because we don't love, but because we do. He dressed simply, leaving his princely robes folded on a chair. No jewels, no crown. Just a man in plain clothes, about to walk into the unknown. In the stable, his horse Kanthaka seemed to understand. Animals always know when something important is happening. The horse nuzzled his hand gently, as if saying, "I'll carry you to where you need to go." Channa was waiting. His faithful charioteer, his friend. "You're really doing this," Channa said. It wasn't a question. "I have to," Siddhartha replied. "If I stay, I'll die inside. And what good is a dead man to anyone?" They rode through the sleeping city, past houses where people dreamed ordinary dreams, past markets that would bustle tomorrow with life, past temples where people prayed for things that wouldn't last. The guards at the gate were asleep, or perhaps they chose to be. Sometimes the universe conspires to help us when we finally decide to help ourselves. As they passed through the gates, Siddhartha felt something shift. The weight he'd carried for 29 years began to lift. Not all at once, but like morning mist dissolving. Each step away from the palace was a step towards something true. They rode until they reached the forest edge. The trees stood like guardians of another world. A world without palaces or expectations. A world where a man could search for meaning without interruption. "This is as far as you go," Siddhartha told Channa. "Let me come with you," Channa pleaded. "You'll need help. You've never been alone." "That's exactly why I must go alone," Siddhartha replied gently. "I need to learn who I am when I'm not a prince. When I'm not a son, a husband, a father. When I'm just a human being seeking truth." He dismounted and handed the reins to Channa. Then he did something that shocked his friend. He took his sword and cut off his long hair. The hair that marked him as royalty. The hair that Yasodhara loved to brush. Gone in moments. "Take this back," he said, handing Channa the hair and his jeweled sword. "Tell them I'm not dead. Tell them I've gone to find life. Real life." Channa wept. Not quietly, but with the full grief of losing someone who's still alive. "When will you return?" he asked. When I have something worth bringing back, Siddhartha said. When I can offer more than just temporary comfort. When I've found what doesn't die. This is the paradox of seeking. You have to leave everything to find anything. You have to lose yourself to discover who you really are. You have to walk away from safety to find true security. Kanthaka, the faithful horse, touched his master's shoulder with his nose. Animals understand sacrifice. They understand love that lets go. Legend says the horse died of grief soon after, but perhaps it was completion. His purpose fulfilled. Siddhartha walked into the forest. No longer a prince. Not yet a Buddha. Just a man with questions bigger than his fear. You know this moment. Maybe not as dramatically, but you know it. The moment you finally said, I can't do this anymore. The moment you chose uncertainty over familiar pain. The moment you stepped into your own forest. Maybe it was leaving a job that paid well, but crushed your spirit. Everyone said you were crazy. In this economy, they asked. But you knew staying would cost more than money. It would cost your soul. Maybe it was ending a relationship that looked perfect on social media. All those happy photos hiding the emptiness. The comments saying, couple goals, while you lay awake feeling alone. You knew leaving would hurt, but staying was killing you slowly. Maybe it was choosing to get help when everyone expected you to be strong. Admitting you couldn't carry it all anymore. That the weight was too much. That you needed to put it down before it crushed you. Siddhartha's departure speaks to every person who's ever chosen authenticity over approval. Who's ever said, I need to find out what's true, even if it costs me everything. As he walked deeper into the forest, the palace life began to feel like a dream. Had he really lived there? Had he really worn those jewels, eaten from golden plates? With each step, those 29 years seemed less real than this single moment of freedom. The trees whispered around him. Not the manicured trees of palace gardens, but wild ones. Real ones. Trees that knew storms and survived. Trees that bent but didn't break. He had no plan. No destination. No teacher waiting. Just a direction, away from illusion, toward truth. Sometimes that's all we need. Not a perfect map, just the courage to begin. The sun began to rise. His first sunrise as a free man. The light touched the leaves, turning them gold. Not the artificial gold of palace decorations, but nature's gold. Temporary, changing, real. He thought of Yasodhara waking to find him gone. The pain twisted in his chest. But he also thought of the alternative. Growing old in that palace, passing on the same beautiful lies to his son. Which was the greater cruelty? This is what courage looks like. Not the absence of doubt, but moving forward despite it. Not knowing you're right, but knowing you can't stay wrong. Not having answers, but finally asking real questions. As the morning warmed, he met his first test. A merchant passed by and recognized him despite his shorn hair. Prince Siddhartha, is that you? Your father will pay handsomely for your return. For a moment, just a moment, Siddhartha wavered. How easy it would be to go back, to slip back into that comfortable life, to pretend this was just a strange dream. But then he remembered the old man, the sick man, the corpse, the seeker's smile. "I am no prince," he said quietly. "I am just a man looking for truth. Tell the king his son is dead. Someone new has been born." The merchant hurried away, confused. But Siddhartha felt lighter. He had passed his first test. Not the last, but the first. As days turned into weeks, the forest became his teacher. Hunger taught him about desire. Cold taught him about comfort. Solitude taught him about the noise he'd carried inside. He learned to beg for food. The prince who'd eaten from golden bowls now held out his hands for scraps. And strange thing, the simple rice tasted better than palace feasts. Because it was real. Because it was earned. Because it came without the weight of expectation. This is what letting go teaches us. The things we think we need, we don't. The things we cling to, they cling to us. Freedom isn't having everything. It's needing nothing. But Siddhartha wasn't there yet. He was just beginning. The prince was dying, yes, but what would be born? He didn't know. That not knowing was both terrifying and liberating. As you lie here tonight, think about your own departures. The ones you've made. The ones you're considering. The ones that call to you in quiet moments. What palace are you living in? What beautiful prison have you built? What truth are you avoiding? What forest calls your name? You don't have to leave everything like Siddhartha did. But maybe there's something you need to leave. A belief that no longer serves you. A role that's become too small. A fear that's kept you safe, but also kept you small. The great departure isn't always about geography. Sometimes it's internal. Sometimes the forest is in your own heart. Sometimes the journey is from who you've been told to be to who you really are. Siddhartha's footsteps led him away from one life and toward another. But really, they led him toward himself. The self that existed before titles and expectations. The self that would exist after everything else fell away. Your footsteps can do the same. One step at a time. One choice at a time. One breath at a time. Away from what no longer serves. Toward what might be true. The forest had become Siddhartha's home, but a home without walls, without comfort, without answers. 6 months had passed since he'd left the palace. 6 months of wandering, and still the questions burned inside him. He'd heard of a great teacher named Alara Kalama, a master who, people said, had found the way beyond suffering. Siddhartha's heart lifted. Perhaps this was why he'd left everything. Perhaps this teacher held the key. You know this feeling. When you discover a new book, a new method, a new guru who promises to have the answer. That surge of hope. This time, you think. This time I'll find what I'm looking for. Alara Kalama lived in a grove with hundreds of disciples. They sat in perfect rows, eyes closed, bodies still as stones. The very air seemed to vibrate with concentration. "Teach me," Siddhartha said simply. The master looked at him with eyes that seemed to see through everything. "You must empty your mind," he said. "Reach the state of nothingness, beyond thought, beyond feeling, beyond everything." Siddhartha threw himself into the practice. Hours of meditation, days of stillness. He learned to slow his breath until it almost stopped. He learned to quiet his thoughts until they whispered, then until they went silent. It was like diving deep underwater. The noise of the world faded. The pain of existence dimmed. In the depths of meditation, there was peace. A kind of peace. But when he surfaced, everything was still there. The questions, the suffering, the world unchanged. This is what happens with escape, isn't it? Whether it's meditation or medication, work or wine. We can check out for a while, find temporary relief, but we always have to come back, and nothing has really changed. After months of practice, Siddhartha mastered everything Alara Kalama taught. He could reach that state of nothingness at will. The teacher was impressed. "You've equaled me," he said. "Stay. Teach alongside me." But Siddhartha felt hollow. "This nothingness," he asked, "does it end suffering permanently?" The teacher's silence was answer enough. It was a temporary escape, not a solution. A hideout, not a home. So Siddhartha left, starting over, still searching. He found another teacher, Uddaka Ramaputta. This master went even further. Beyond nothingness, he taught, is neither perception nor non-perception. The ultimate state. More months of practice. Deeper states. Siddhartha became like a master athlete of meditation. He could twist his consciousness into any shape, reach any mental state. But still, when he opened his eyes, the world was waiting. Suffering was waiting. Death was waiting. You've done this too, in your own way. Thrown yourself into something that promised to fix everything. Maybe it was a new diet that would finally make you happy with yourself. Maybe it was a productivity system that would finally make you feel accomplished. Maybe it was a relationship that would finally make you whole. And for a while, it worked. The novelty carried you. The effort distracted you. But then the old feelings crept back. The old questions. The old emptiness. Siddhartha left the second teacher too. But now he was angry. Angry at the teachers for not having answers. Angry at himself for hoping they would. Angry at the universe for being so complicated. Perhaps I'm too soft, he thought. Perhaps I need to be harder on myself. Perhaps suffering is the way through suffering. He met 5 ascetics in the forest. Men who'd taken the opposite approach. Instead of escaping the body, they punished it. Instead of seeking comfort, they sought pain. The body is the enemy, they told him. It chains us with its desires. Conquer the body, and you conquer suffering. This made a strange kind of sense to Siddhartha. After all, wasn't it his body that aged? Wasn't it his body that would die? Maybe if he could master it completely, he'd find freedom. So began the harshest chapter of his search. He ate 1 grain of rice a day, then nothing. He stood on 1 foot for hours. He held his breath until he nearly fainted. He sat in the blazing sun, in the freezing rain. His body withered. His ribs showed like a washboard. His eyes sank deep into his skull. When he touched his stomach, he could feel his spine. The 5 ascetics were impressed. "No one has gone as far as you," they said. "Surely you're close to enlightenment." But Siddhartha wasn't close to enlightenment. He was close to death. And in his honest moments, he knew it. He was just trading one extreme for another. Palace luxury for forest torture. Both were prisons. This is so human, isn't it? We swing from extreme to extreme. Overeat, then starve. Overwork, then burn out. Give everything, then withdraw completely. As if the opposite of one mistake could somehow be right. One day, Siddhartha tried to bathe in the river. He was so weak he couldn't climb back up the bank. He clung to a tree root, barely conscious. Is this enlightenment? He wondered. Or is this just another kind of stupidity? A young woman named Sujata found him there. She thought he was a tree spirit. He looked so inhuman. She offered him a bowl of rice pudding, milk and honey and grain. Siddhartha stared at the bowl. To eat it would be to admit failure. 6 years of searching, and he'd found nothing. Every path had led nowhere. Every teacher had disappointed. Every method had failed. But he was dying, and dead men find no answers. He ate. The taste exploded in his mouth. Sweet, rich, alive. His body, starved for so long, sang with gratitude. Tears ran down his face. Not from sadness, but from the simple grace of nourishment. The 5 ascetics saw him eating. They were disgusted. "You've given up," they said. "You've chosen comfort over truth. We thought you were serious." They left him there, alone. But as Siddhartha sat with the empty bowl, something shifted. For the first time in 6 years, he wasn't following someone else's path. He wasn't trying to be perfect. He was just being human. He remembered something from his childhood. A day when his father had taken him to watch the ploughing. While the adults worked, young Siddhartha had sat under a tree. Without trying, without effort, he'd fallen into a natural peace. Just sitting. Just breathing. Just being. What if I've been trying too hard? He wondered. What if the answer isn't in extremes but in balance? He thought of the musician's words from long ago. The string too tight breaks. Too loose makes no music. The middle way. This is such a profound moment. When we stop trying to be perfect, when we stop punishing ourselves for being human, when we realize that maybe, just maybe, we're allowed to be kind to ourselves. You've had moments like this, when you finally stopped the crazy diet and just ate normally, when you stopped trying to be super parent and just loved your kids as you are, when you stopped comparing yourself to everyone else and just lived your life. Siddhartha spent days recovering by the river, eating when hungry, sleeping when tired. Not too much, not too little, just enough. His body began to heal, but more importantly, his mind began to clear. Without the extremes of indulgence or denial, he could finally think straight. He realized something crucial. All his searching had been driven by wanting answers, wanting to escape suffering, wanting to be special. Wanting enlightenment itself had become just another desire. What if he stopped wanting, not through force, but through understanding? What if he just sat with what is, instead of always reaching for what might be? He found a fig tree by the river. Later, people would call it the Bodhi tree. But that evening, it was just a tree with good shade and strong roots. He made a cushion of grass and sat down, not to achieve anything, not to become anything, just to sit, just to be present with whatever arose. I will not move from this spot, he vowed quietly, until I understand. Not someone else's understanding, not some special state, just simple, clear seeing of what is true. The sun set. The stars emerged. Night creatures began their songs. And Siddhartha sat, not straining, not expecting, just sitting. This is where the real journey begins. Not in the dramatic gesture, not in the extreme effort, but in the quiet moment when we stop trying to be anywhere other than where we are. All those years of searching had brought him here. Every failed path had been necessary. The palace had shown him what didn't satisfy. The teachers had shown him what didn't last. The extremes had shown him what didn't work. Now, with nothing left to try, he could finally just be. As you rest here tonight, consider your own search. What extremes have you tried? What perfect solutions have failed you? What teachers have you followed who didn't have the answers you sought? Maybe, like Siddhartha, you've been trying too hard. Maybe the answer isn't in doing more, but in doing less. Maybe it's not about becoming someone else, but about being who you are. The middle way isn't about compromise. It's about wisdom. It's about finding that perfect tension where the string sings. Not too tight, not too loose. Just right. Your breath knows this middle way. In and out, without extremes. Your heartbeat knows it. Steady and sustainable. Maybe it's time your mind learned it too. As Siddhartha settled into meditation that night, he wasn't trying to escape the world. He wasn't trying to conquer his body. He was simply paying attention, watching thoughts arise and pass, watching feelings come and go, not pushing anything away, not holding on to anything. Just this breath, just this moment, just this simple act of being present. The search was ending, not because he'd found what he was looking for, but because he was beginning to understand that maybe he'd been carrying it all along. The tree stood ancient and patient, its roots deep in the earth, its branches reaching towards stars. Siddhartha arranged his grass cushion and sat down, crossing his legs. Not in the rigid way he'd learned from the ascetics, just comfortably, just naturally. The evening was warm. Fireflies danced in the growing darkness. Somewhere, a night bird called. The ordinary world, going about its business while something extraordinary was about to unfold. He placed his right hand on the earth. A simple gesture, but profound. "Earth, be my witness," he whispered. "I have tried everything else. Now I simply sit." You know this feeling. When you finally stop running. When you finally stop trying to fix yourself. When you sit down right in the middle of your life and say, "This is it. This moment. I'm going to face whatever comes." As Siddhartha settled into stillness, his mind began to show him everything. Not the peaceful emptiness he'd learned from his teachers, but the full chaos of being human. First came desire. Images of his palace life flooded back. Silk sheets, delicious foods, his wife's embrace, the warmth of his son in his arms. "You could go back," the thoughts whispered. "No one would blame you. You've tried. You've done more than most. Go home to comfort." But Siddhartha just watched these thoughts, like clouds passing across the moon, beautiful but temporary. He didn't push them away. He didn't grab onto them. He just noticed. This is meditation's secret. Not emptying your mind. That's impossible. But watching your mind, seeing its patterns, understanding its nature. Next came fear. What if he was wasting his life? What if there were no answers? What if he sat here forever and nothing happened? What if he'd abandoned his family for nothing? The fear felt real. It always does. Your fears feel real too, don't they? The 3 a.m. worries. The what-ifs that spiral out of control. The voice that says you're not enough, you'll never be enough. But Siddhartha had learned something from his years of practice. Fear is just another visitor. It comes, it speaks its piece, it leaves. You don't have to serve it tea. You don't have to believe its stories. As the night deepened, the challenges intensified. In the traditional story, they call this visitor Mara, the tempter, the obstacle. But really, Mara is just our own mind. All the ways we sabotage ourselves. All the voices that keep us small. "Who are you to seek enlightenment?" Mara whispered. "You're just a spoiled prince playing at spirituality. Real seekers suffer more. Real seekers are more pure. You ate that rice pudding. You gave up. Sound familiar? That voice that says you're not qualified for happiness, that you haven't earned peace, that other people deserve good things, but not you. We all have that voice. But Siddhartha did something beautiful. He didn't argue with Mara. He didn't try to prove his worth. He simply touched the earth again and said, "The earth is my witness. I have a right to be here. I have a right to seek truth." This is so powerful. Not earning your place through suffering. Not proving your worth through achievement. Simply claiming your birthright as a human being. You have a right to seek peace. You have a right to be happy. The earth itself confirms this. As midnight approached, Siddhartha's awareness deepened. He began to see not just his own mind, but the nature of all minds. The patterns that trap us all. He saw how desire leads to grasping, how grasping leads to fear of loss, how fear leads to anger, how anger leads to blindness. Round and round, the wheel of suffering. But he also saw something else. The wheel only turns when we fuel it. When we stop adding wood to the fire, it naturally dies down. When we stop feeding our patterns, they naturally fade. This wasn't philosophy. This was direct seeing. Like finally understanding how you've been tying yourself in knots and realizing you can stop. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, or maybe lifetimes. Time works differently when you're fully present. Have you noticed that? How a moment of real presence can feel eternal. How an hour of distraction passes in a blink. Siddhartha began to remember. Not just this life, but the patterns across all existence. He saw how every being struggles. How every being wants happiness. How every being fears pain. The universal story playing out in billions of forms. He felt immense compassion. Not pity from above, but recognition. We're all in this together, he realized. Every person I've ever met is fighting the same battle, seeking the same peace, making the same mistakes. Think about this. The person who cut you off in traffic today, they're seeking happiness, just like you. The difficult colleague, the challenging relative, all of them just trying to avoid suffering, usually in unskillful ways, but the motivation is the same. As the darkest part of night arrived, Siddhartha faced the deepest fear. Death. Not just physical death, but the death of everything we hold dear. The ending of all stories. The ultimate letting go. He didn't run from this vision. He entered it fully. He died to who he had been. The prince died. The seeker died. Even the one who wanted enlightenment died. And in that complete letting go, something else was revealed. Something that doesn't die because it was never born. Something that doesn't suffer because it doesn't grasp. The awareness itself. Pure, simple, always present. You touch this sometimes. In the gap between thoughts. In the moment between sleep and waking. when beauty stops your mind, when love opens your heart completely, that background of awareness that's always been there. The stars wheeled overhead. The night sounds continued. But for Siddhartha, everything had changed. Or rather, he was seeing clearly what had always been true. He understood why he had suffered. Not because life includes pain, that's inevitable, but because he had added so much extra, wanting things to be different, believing thoughts that weren't true, fighting reality instead of flowing with it. It's like finally seeing that you've been wearing dark glasses all your life. The world isn't dark. You've just been looking through a filter, and you can take the glasses off. Dawn was approaching. The eastern sky began to lighten almost imperceptibly. That magical time when night hasn't ended but day hasn't begun. The in-between time. The time of possibilities. Siddhartha opened his eyes. The same world was there. The same tree, the same earth, the same sky. But now he saw it without the overlay of his projections. Just things as they are. Simple. Perfect in their simplicity. A morning star appeared. Venus, bright and clear. And in that moment, the final piece fell into place. He saw that he had been looking for something he already was. Like space looking for space. Like water looking for wetness. How wonderful, he said softly. How amazing. All beings are already enlightened. They just don't know it. They're looking everywhere else when it's right here. This is the cosmic joke. We run around seeking peace while we're standing in it. We search for ourselves while being ourselves. We look for home while never having left. The Buddha, for that's what Siddhartha had become, sat quietly as the world woke up. Birds began their morning songs. Insects buzzed. Life continued its ancient dance. But now he saw the dance differently. Not as chaos, but as pattern. Not as suffering, but as change. Not as problem, but as process. He thought of his father still trying to control life. His wife, still wondering why he left. His son, growing up without him. He felt love for them all, but not attachment. Not the grasping kind of love that causes pain. The free kind that wishes well without needing anything back. He could have stayed under that tree forever. The peace was so profound. The silence so complete. Why return to the world of noise and confusion? But then he remembered all the others. Everyone still trapped in the patterns he'd just seen through. Everyone still believing the stories that cause such pain. Could he keep this understanding to himself? This is compassion's birth. Not from obligation, but from clear seeing. When you truly understand how suffering works, you naturally want to share the key. Not to be special, not to be followed. Just because keeping it to yourself would be like hoarding medicine during a plague. The Buddha stood slowly. His body creaked from sitting all night. But he laughed. Even discomfort was just sensation now. Neither good nor bad. Just what it is. He looked at the tree that had sheltered him, the patient tree that had witnessed his transformation. He touched its bark gently. A thank you, a blessing, a recognition of its role in the great unfolding. As you rest here tonight, you're under your own Bodhi tree, your bed, your room, this moment. The same opportunity Siddhartha had is here for you. Not to become someone else, but to see clearly who you already are. You don't need to sit all night. You don't need to have visions. You just need to notice what's already true. The peace beneath the turbulence. The stillness beneath the movement. The you that watches all the other yous come and go. The morning star that signaled Siddhartha's awakening shines for you too. Every morning, every moment, pointing to what's always been here, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to come home. The Buddha sat by a village well, watching people come and go. A woman approached, carrying water jars. Her face was etched with worry lines, her shoulders bent not from the weight of water, but from the weight of life. "Why do you look so troubled?" the Buddha asked gently. She set down her jars, surprised anyone had noticed. "My son is sick," she said. "My husband lost his work. My mother is aging. Every day brings new problems. I pray, I work hard, but suffering never ends." The Buddha nodded. "Tell me," he said, "when you carry water and the jar is cracked, what happens?" "The water leaks out," she replied, confused. "And if you keep filling it, it keeps leaking. I'd be carrying water forever." "Just so," the Buddha said. "We try to fill our lives, but we haven't noticed the crack. We haven't understood why satisfaction keeps leaking away. This is the first noble truth. Life includes suffering, not as punishment, not as failure, but as the nature of things. Like water naturally flows downward. Like flowers naturally fade. Suffering is woven into the fabric of existence. You know this truth. You feel it every time you check your bank balance with anxiety. Every time you look in the mirror and see new lines. Every time someone you love is in pain and you can't fix it. But the Buddha wasn't being pessimistic. He was being realistic. Like a doctor who must first acknowledge the disease before finding the cure. A young merchant joined them at the well. He was successful, well-dressed, but his eyes were restless. "I heard you speak of suffering," he said, "but I'm not suffering. I have wealth, health, a good family. Your teaching doesn't apply to me." The Buddha smiled. "Tell me about your day," he said. The merchant puffed up. "I woke early to check my goods. Worried about the shipment from the south, storms might delay it. Argued with a supplier about prices. Caught an employee stealing. Worried my competitor is undercutting me. But these are just business challenges. And when you go home tonight, I'll review accounts. Plan tomorrow's strategies. Make sure my sons are studying hard. They must be ready to take over. Check that my wife is managing the household properly. "And when do you rest?" the Buddha asked. "Rest," the merchant laughed. "I'll rest when I have enough. When the business is secure. When my sons are established. When everything is perfect." "So you're not suffering," the Buddha said gently. "You're just constantly anxious, worried, planning, controlling, never satisfied, never at peace. What would you call that?" The merchant fell silent. In that silence, he heard his own heartbeat. Racing. Always racing. This is suffering's secret. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's the background hum of dissatisfaction, the constant feeling that something's missing, the endless reaching for the next thing. You live this too. Scrolling through your phone, looking for something. What? You don't even know. Just something to fill the emptiness. Something to stop the restlessness. An old farmer had been listening. "But Buddha," he said, "life is hard. We must work, plan, strive. Otherwise we starve. Are you saying we should just give up?" "Watch the birds," the Buddha replied. "They work for their food, build their nests, care for their young. But have you ever seen a bird suffering from anxiety about next year's seeds? They do what's needed without the extra layer of mental suffering we add." "We suffer," he continued, "not just from pain, but from our stories about pain. Not just from loss, but from our fear of loss. Not just from aging, but from our rejection of aging. We take life's inevitable challenges and multiply them with our minds." A mother carrying a crying baby approached the well. She looked exhausted. "My baby cries all night," she said. "I love her, but I'm so tired. Sometimes I feel angry, then guilty for feeling angry. I'm a terrible mother." The Buddha's eyes were kind. "The baby's crying is one arrow," he said. "Your tiredness is another. But you've added more arrows. Anger at the situation, guilt about the anger, judgment about the guilt. How many arrows are you carrying?" She began to cry. "So many," she whispered. "What if you just carried the first two?" he asked. "Baby cries, mother is tired. Simple facts. No stories. No judgments. Just what is." This is the second noble truth. We suffer because we want things to be different. We crave pleasure, push away pain. We cling to what we like, resist what we don't. This constant pushing and pulling exhausts us. Think about your own life. How much energy you spend wanting. Wanting more money, more time, more love, more recognition, or wanting less. Less stress, less weight, less conflict, less pain. Always wanting something other than what is. A young woman approached, beautiful but anxious. "I know about desire," she said. "I've tried to eliminate it. I fast, I meditate, I avoid pleasure. But desires keep arising. How can I destroy them?" The Buddha picked up a handful of sand. "Try to squeeze this sand so tight it can't escape," he said. She squeezed. The sand slipped through her fingers. Now hold it gently, with open palm. The sand rested peacefully in her hand. Desire is like this sand, he said. Fight it, and it slips away only to return. Understand it, hold it lightly, and it loses its power to control you. But how? She asked. The Buddha pointed to the village. See that man checking his reflection in every window? He desires to be handsome. But even if he becomes the most handsome man alive, then what? Will he be satisfied? Or will he fear losing his looks? Desire promises satisfaction but delivers only more desire. This teaching hits close to home in our modern world. You get the promotion you wanted. Happiness lasts a week. Then you want the next level. You buy the perfect house. Soon you're noticing its flaws, dreaming of renovations. Social media has made this worse. Now you don't just want more than you have. You want more than everyone else has. Or rather, more than what they pretend to have. Comparing your inside to everyone else's outside. An elder approached the Buddha. I'm dying, he said simply. The healers say months, maybe weeks. I've been angry, bargaining with the gods. But sitting here, listening, I wonder, is there another way to face this? The Buddha took the man's weathered hand. Everything that arises, passes, he said. This is the nature of all things. Your body arose from elements and will return to elements. But tell me, were you born with this body? Of course, the man said. Was it the same body at 5 years old? At 20? At 40? No, the man said slowly. It changed. So this body has been dying and renewing your whole life, the Buddha said. Every cell, every thought, every feeling, arising and passing. What you call death is just a larger version of what happens every moment. The man's eyes widened. So I've been practicing dying my whole life. And practicing rebirth, the Buddha smiled. Every morning you wake slightly different. Every breath is a small death and birth. When you understand this, death loses its sting. It's just change, and you've been changing all along. This is the truth of impermanence. Everything changes. Nothing remains the same. Not your body, not your thoughts, not your relationships, not your problems. Everything is in flow. This sounds scary until you really understand it. Then it becomes liberating. Your pain, impermanent. Your failures, impermanent. That fight with your partner, impermanent. Everything passes. But we fight this truth. We try to freeze the good moments. Take 1,000 photos of the vacation. Cling to youth. Hold on to relationships that have run their course. And in trying to stop the river, we exhaust ourselves. A scholar approached, full of questions. Buddha, who am I? What is the self? What continues after death? What is the soul? The Buddha pointed to the well. Look into the water. What do you see? My reflection, the scholar said. Now stir the water. The scholar stirred. His reflection broke into ripples, disappeared. Where did your reflection go? The Buddha asked. It's gone, but I'm still here. Just so, the Buddha said. What you call self is like that reflection, a temporary pattern arising from conditions. When conditions change, the pattern changes. There's no fixed, unchanging self to be found. The scholar looked troubled. But if there's no self, who is seeking enlightenment? Who will be enlightened? The Buddha smiled. The question contains the problem. You assume there must be a who. What if there's just the seeking? Just the enlightenment? Like there's walking but no walker, thinking but no thinker. This is the most challenging teaching. No self. We're so identified with our thoughts, our stories, our identities. I am a teacher. I am a parent. I am successful. I am a failure. But what if these are just temporary roles, not who you really are? You've glimpsed this. In deep sleep, where is your self? In moments of flow, when you're so absorbed that you disappears. When you laugh so hard you forget yourself. These moments of self-forgetting are often our happiest. A young father brought his son to the well. Buddha, I want my son to be happy. How can I ensure he doesn't suffer? The Buddha looked at the boy playing with stones. Watch your son, he said. He picks up a stone, plays with it, puts it down, picks up another. No attachment. No stories about the stones. He's teaching you the way. But he'll grow up, the father said. He'll face loss, disappointment, death. Yes, the Buddha agreed. But will you teach him to meet these with resistance or acceptance? Will you show him how to cling or how to flow? Your example is his first teaching. The father was quiet. Then he asked, how do I teach what I don't know? By learning together, the Buddha said. By admitting you don't have all the answers. By showing him it's okay to be human, to struggle, to not know. The greatest gift you can give is not perfection, but presence. As the day wore on, more people gathered, each with their own flavor of suffering. The woman afraid of aging, the man consumed by anger, the teenager comparing herself to everyone else, the elder grasping at fading memories. To each, the Buddha offered not philosophy but practical wisdom, not complex theories but simple truths. Look at your suffering. Understand its cause. See that it can end. Follow the path of understanding. These teachings aren't ancient history. They're as fresh as your next breath. Your suffering has modern clothes, deadline stress instead of crop failure, social media comparison instead of village gossip. But underneath, it's the same human heart wanting happiness, fearing pain. Tonight, as you rest, you might feel the weight of your own water jars, the responsibilities you carry, the worries that won't let you sleep, the desires that keep you reaching, the fears that keep you running. What if you could set them down? Not forever, but just for now. What if you could stop trying to fix everything? Stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Stop adding arrows to the unavoidable pains of life. The Buddha's teaching is radically simple. When it hurts, know that it hurts. When you're grasping, know that you're grasping. When things change, let them change. When you can't find a fixed self, stop looking. This isn't giving up. It's giving in to what's true. It's the deepest form of acceptance. And in that acceptance, paradoxically, is freedom. The peace that comes not from getting what you want, but from understanding the wanting itself. As the Buddha rose to leave the well, the first woman asked, "But how do we remember this when we're back in our daily lives? When the suffering feels so real?" He touched the earth, as he had under the Bodhi tree. "The earth remembers," he said. "The breath remembers. Your own heart remembers. When you forget, just come back. Always, just come back to what is true. This moment, this breath, this simple awareness that holds it all." A group of travelers had been walking for days, lost in a vast forest. They stumbled into a clearing where the Buddha sat teaching. "Please," their leader said, "we're trying to reach the city of peace, but every path we take leads nowhere. We're exhausted." The Buddha drew a wheel in the dirt. 8 spokes radiating from the center. "There is a path," he said. "Not a straight line, but a wheel that turns together. 8 parts supporting each other, leading to peace." 8 seems like a lot, one traveler sighed. "We can barely manage one direction." The Buddha smiled. "You have 2 legs, yes? Do you worry about coordinating them when you walk? They work together naturally. The path is like this. 8 aspects of one movement toward freedom. This is how life works, isn't it? Everything connected. You can't have a healthy body with an unhealthy mind. Can't have good relationships with harmful speech. Can't find peace while causing chaos. It all works together, or doesn't work at all." "Let me tell you about a merchant I knew," the Buddha began. "He came to me frustrated. 'I meditate daily,' he said, 'but I find no peace. My mind won't settle.' I asked about his work. He sold weapons. 'Good business,' he said, 'always wars somewhere.' I asked about his meditation. He sought inner peace. 'Do you see the conflict?' I asked him. He was trying to find peace while profiting from violence. Like trying to clean yourself while standing in mud. The path requires alignment. Your understanding, intentions, actions, all must flow in the same direction. The first spoke the Buddha pointed to was right understanding. This isn't about being smart, he said. It's about seeing clearly. Like cleaning your glasses so you stop walking into walls. A young mother in the group spoke up. I think I understand life, she said. Work hard, raise good children, save money, be respectable. Isn't that enough? Tell me, the Buddha asked gently, has this understanding brought you peace? She looked down. No, I worry constantly. Will my children succeed? Will we have enough money? What will people think? I do everything right, but feel everything's wrong. Right understanding, the Buddha said, begins with seeing that everything changes. Your children will grow beyond your control. Money comes and goes. Reputation is just wind. When you understand impermanence, you stop trying to freeze the river. You live this struggle, building your life on things that shift like sand. Job security that isn't secure. Relationships you thought were forever. The identity you spent years constructing suddenly feeling false. Right understanding sees through the illusions. Not to make you cynical, but to free you. When you know the movie will end, you can enjoy it without clinging to favorite scenes. The second spoke, the Buddha continued, is right intention. Your understanding is a map, but intention is your compass. Where is your heart pointing? An ambitious young man interrupted. My intentions are clear. Success, wealth, power. I visualize them daily. I have a vision board. The Buddha picked up 2 arrows. One arrow is poisoned with greed, hate, and delusion. The other is clean, aimed at kindness, compassion, and wisdom. Both can hit their target. Which do you choose to shoot? But how can I succeed without ambition? The young man asked. Watch a tree grow, the Buddha replied. Does it strain with ambition? Does it compete with other trees? It simply follows its nature, reaching for light. It succeeds by being fully what it is. This hits differently in our goal-obsessed world. Every motivational post screams, hustle harder, want more, crush the competition. But where does it lead? To crushing yourself. Right intention isn't about wanting less. It's about wanting wisely, intending good for yourself and others. Success that doesn't require someone else's failure. Happiness that doesn't depend on comparison. Now we come to right speech, the Buddha said, touching the third spoke. Your words create worlds. What worlds are you creating? A woman known for gossip shifted uncomfortably. I just share what I hear, she said. I don't mean harm. People want to know what's happening. The Buddha handed her a feather. Tear this apart and scatter it to the wind, he said. She did. The pieces flew in all directions. Now gather them back, he said. Impossible, she replied. They're everywhere. So it is with words, the Buddha said. Once spoken, they fly beyond your control. Harsh words wound like arrows. Lies tangle like webs. Gossip spreads like fire. Choose carefully. Think about your own words. The text sent in anger. The comment posted without thinking. The criticism that cut deeper than intended. We live in an age where words travel at light speed, reaching thousands. But wisdom still moves at the speed of thought. Right speech isn't just avoiding harm. It's speaking truth with kindness. Silence when words won't help. Encouragement when someone struggles. The healing word at the right moment. The fourth spoke is right action, the Buddha continued. Not just what you do, but how you do it. With what mind, what heart. A soldier in the group looked troubled. I must act with violence sometimes, he said. It's my duty. Does this path exclude me? A surgeon cuts with a knife, the Buddha replied. A murderer cuts with a knife. Same action, different intention. Right action considers not just the deed, but the motivation. Protection or aggression. Service or domination. But more often, he added, right action is simple. Not taking what isn't given. Not harming unnecessarily. Not using others for selfish pleasure. Basic kindness enacted daily. You face these choices constantly. The office supplies that could slip into your bag. The credit you could take for another's work. The small cruelties that no one would notice. Right action asks, who do you become with each choice? Right livelihood, the Buddha said, indicating the fifth spoke. How you earn your bread matters. It flavors everything else in your life. A businessman protested. In this economy, we take what work we can get. Not everyone can choose noble professions. I'm not speaking of noble, the Buddha clarified. I'm speaking of harmful. Can you sleep peacefully knowing how you earned your wage? Does your work increase suffering or decrease it? I knew a man who sold false remedies, the Buddha continued. Good profit, desperate customers. But he couldn't enjoy his wealth. Every coin carried the weight of deception. He was rich but couldn't afford peace. This teaching challenges us deeply today. Maybe your company cuts corners on safety. Maybe your industry profits from addiction. Maybe you market things people don't need to people who can't afford them. The paycheck clears, but does your conscience? Right livelihood doesn't demand perfection, but it asks for intention, moving toward work that helps rather than harms, finding ways to bring integrity into what you do, small steps toward alignment. The sixth spoke is right effort, the Buddha said. Not strain, but wise energy. Like tuning an instrument, not too tight, not too loose. A student who'd been frantically taking notes looked up. I'm trying so hard to understand, she said. I practice constantly. I push myself to meditate longer, study more. But I'm exhausted. Watch a cat hunt, the Buddha suggested. Perfect attention without tension. Ready, but relaxed. This is right effort. Not forcing, but allowing. Not lazy, but easeful. You know wrong effort. It's every crash diet that ended in binge eating. Every workout plan that lasted 2 weeks. Every meditation practice abandoned because you couldn't sit perfectly still. Trying so hard you guarantee failure. Right effort is sustainable. It's the daily walk rather than the monthly marathon. The gentle attention that notices thoughts without fighting them. The patient persistence that trusts the process. Right mindfulness, the Buddha said, touching the seventh spoke, is remembering to be present. Most of us live everywhere but here. An elderly man nodded. I spend my days in memory, he admitted. When life was better, when I was young. The present is just disappointment. A young woman added, and I live in the future, when I'll have the perfect job, perfect partner, perfect life. The present is just a waiting room. Meanwhile, the Buddha said, life happens in the only moment you can actually touch. This one. Your past is memory. Your future is imagination. Reality is now. He had them close their eyes. Feel your breath, he said. Not yesterday's breath or tomorrow's. This one. Feel your body sitting here. The air on your skin. The sounds around you. This is mindfulness. Coming home to what is. We're the least present generation in history. Watching TV while scrolling phones. Eating while working. Walking while planning. Always multitasking, never fully anywhere. No wonder we feel scattered. Right. Mindfulness isn't about sitting still all day. It's about being where you are. Washing dishes. Feel the water. Stuck in traffic. Notice your breathing. Can't sleep. Feel the bed holding you. Simple presence, profound peace. The eighth spoke, the Buddha concluded, is right concentration. Not forcing the mind into submission, but allowing it to settle naturally. A merchant who'd been restless throughout the teaching spoke up. My mind never settles, he said. It jumps like a monkey. Thoughts, worries, plans, constant noise. How can I concentrate? The Buddha pointed to a muddy puddle. If you keep stirring this water, will it clear? No, the merchant replied. But if you let it be, the mud would settle, the water would clear. Your mind is like this water, the Buddha said. Stop stirring. Stop adding. Let it settle on its own. Clarity is natural when we stop creating turbulence. This is the paradox of concentration. The harder you try, the more elusive it becomes. Like trying to fall asleep by forcing yourself. Like trying to remember something by straining. The mind settles when we stop demanding it settle. A young artist understood. It's like when I paint, she said. When I try too hard, the work is stiff. But sometimes I disappear into the painting. Hours pass like minutes. Everything flows. Yes, the Buddha smiled. You know concentration. Not as effort, but as absorption. Not controlling, but merging. This is available in any moment, with any object. The breath, a sound, a sensation. When the mind finds interest, it naturally concentrates. The travelers sat quietly, absorbing the teaching. 8 spokes, but really, one wheel. 8 aspects of one way of being. It seems overwhelming, someone said. How can we manage all 8? You don't manage them, the Buddha replied. You practice one, and it strengthens the others. Speak truthfully, and your mind clarifies. Act kindly, and concentration comes easier. It's not 8 separate practices, but 8 facets of one jewel. Start where you are, he continued. Maybe right speech calls to you. Notice your words tomorrow. Maybe right livelihood. Consider how your work affects others. Pick one spoke and turn the wheel. The rest will follow. This is the beauty of the path. It meets you wherever you are. Stressed parent? Start with right effort. Ease up on yourself. Anxious about money? Explore right understanding. See through the illusion of security. Can't meditate? Try right action. Let kindness be your practice. The path isn't about becoming someone else. It's about aligning who you are. Like wheels on a car, when they point in different directions, you go nowhere. When they align, movement is effortless. One more thing, the Buddha added as the travelers prepared to leave. This isn't a path to somewhere else. It's a path to here. You're not trying to reach some distant shore. You're learning to swim in the ocean you're already in. A child who'd been listening piped up. So we're already there? We just don't know it. The Buddha's eyes twinkled. The child understands what the adults complicate. Yes, in a way, you're already there. The path just helps you realize it. As you rest tonight, feel into this teaching. Not as rules to follow, but as invitations to explore. Where is your life out of alignment? Where do your actions conflict with your values? Where does your work oppose your peace? The Eightfold Path isn't about perfection. It's about direction. Like a compass pointing north, it keeps you oriented. You'll wander off. We all do. But the path is always there, patient as the earth, ready when you are. Tomorrow, you'll wake to your usual life. Same job, same challenges, same patterns. But maybe, just maybe, you'll remember one spoke of the wheel. And in remembering, you'll turn it slightly. And in turning, everything shifts. Not dramatically, just enough. Just enough to point toward peace. A woman came to the Buddha, carrying her dead child. Her eyes were wild with grief, her voice broken. "They say you have powers," she cried. "Please, bring my baby back. I'll do anything. Give anything. Just make him breathe again." The Buddha's eyes filled with compassion. Not pity, but the deep understanding of one who knows suffering. "I will help you," he said gently. "But first you must bring me something." Hope flickered in her eyes. "Anything," she whispered. "Bring me a mustard seed," he said. "But it must come from a house where no one has died, where death has never visited, where grief has never entered." She ran to the village, clutching her child. At the first house, she knocked. "Please, I need a mustard seed. But tell me first, has death visited here?" The old woman who answered began to cry. "My husband last winter," she said. 40 years together, then gone." The mother moved to the next house. A young man answered, "Death? My brother, in an accident." my mother in childbirth. We know death well here. House after house. The same story in different words. Parents, children, siblings, friends. Everyone had been touched. Everyone had grieved. Everyone had asked why. As the sun began to set, something shifted in the woman. She was no longer running. She walked slowly now, still carrying her child, but differently. The frantic desperation was fading. Something else was taking its place. You know this feeling. When your personal tragedy feels like the end of the world, like you're the only one who's ever hurt this much. Then slowly, you realize everyone carries wounds. Everyone has lost. You're not alone in this. At the last house, a child answered. Has anyone died here? The woman asked, already knowing. My baby sister, the child said simply. Mama cries at night when she thinks I'm sleeping, but I hear her. The woman knelt down. For the first time all day, she really looked at someone else's pain. Tell your mama, she said softly, she's not alone. She returned to the Buddha as darkness fell. Her child still in her arms, but she was changed. I couldn't find the seed, she said. What did you find? He asked gently. Everyone, she whispered. Everyone has lost. Everyone grieves. I thought I was drowning alone, but we're all in the same ocean. The Buddha nodded. This is the first noble truth lived, not just heard. Suffering is universal, not as punishment, but as part of loving in a world where everything changes. But how do I bear it? She asked. The same way the ocean bears its waves, he replied. By being larger than any single sorrow. By knowing that grief, like everything, will change. Not disappear, but transform. She laid her child down gently. The first time she'd let go all day. Will it always hurt? She asked. It will always matter, the Buddha said. Love leaves marks, but the sharp edge dulls. The weight lessens, and one day you'll help another mother searching for mustard seeds. This parable speaks to every loss you've faced. The death that shattered your world, the divorce that ended your dreams, the diagnosis that changed everything. You searched for the house without suffering, the life without loss, and learned it doesn't exist. But in learning that, you found something else. Connection, compassion, the strange comfort of shared humanity. We all walk through the valley of shadows. No one gets the mustard seed, but no one walks alone. Days later, a man rushed to the Buddha. An arrow protruded from his shoulder, blood seeping through his clothes. "Help me," he gasped. The Buddha moved toward him, but the man held up his hand. "Wait," he said. "First, tell me, who shot this arrow? What wood is it made from? What bird gave its feathers? Was the archer tall or short? Why did they shoot me? Friend, the Buddha said calmly, if we wait to answer all your questions, you'll die. Let me remove the arrow first. Then we can discuss its origin. No, the man insisted. I must understand. Was it personal? Random? What did I do to deserve this? Is the universe punishing me? Is there meaning in this suffering? Blood continued to flow. His face grew pale. Still, he demanded answers. What kind of bow? What angle? What was the archer thinking? This is you at 3 in the morning. The arrow of insomnia in your chest. But instead of removing it, you analyze. Why can't I sleep? Is it something I ate? Something I said? Am I broken? Will I ever sleep again? Or the arrow of anxiety. Why am I like this? Was it my childhood? My genes? That thing that happened 10 years ago. If I can just understand the cause, maybe I can think my way out. The Buddha tried once more. Understanding has its place, he said, but not while you're bleeding. First, we address the immediate suffering. Remove the arrow. Stop the bleeding. Then, from a place of safety, we can explore. But the man couldn't stop. His mind spun faster than his blood flowed. Questions upon questions. Theories about theories. He died there, the arrow still in place, his questions unanswered. How often do we do this? Overthinking instead of addressing. Analyzing instead of healing. We'd rather understand our suffering than relieve it. As if the perfect explanation could make pain meaningful. But the Buddha taught something simpler. When it hurts, attend to the hurt. When you can't sleep, rest anyway. When anxiety grips, breathe through it. First things first. Remove the arrow. The philosophy can wait. This doesn't mean never seeking understanding, but in the midst of crisis, thinking often makes it worse. Have you noticed? The more you analyze your insomnia, the more awake you become. The more you dissect your anxiety, the more anxious you feel. Sometimes wisdom means saying, I don't need to figure this out right now. I just need to breathe. Just need to be kind to myself. The answers, if they exist, will come when I'm ready, not while I'm bleeding. A proud scholar visited the Buddha, full of knowledge and opinions. I've studied all the philosophies, he announced. Read all the texts. Debated all the masters. Now I've come to add your teaching to my collection. The Buddha smiled and prepared tea. He handed the scholar a cup and began to pour. The tea reached the brim. The Buddha kept pouring. Tea overflowed onto the scholar's robes. Stop, the scholar cried. The cup is full. It can hold no more. Indeed, the Buddha said, setting down the pot. And how can I pour wisdom into a cup already full? How can you receive when you're overflowing with knowing? The scholar's face reddened. Are you saying my knowledge is worthless? I'm saying it's in the way, the Buddha replied gently. Your cup is so full of what you think you know, there's no room for what you might discover. No space for surprise. No opening for wonder. This is the burden of our information age. We're all full cups, full of facts, opinions, theories, beliefs. We've read the articles, watched the videos, formed our views, and now we're too full to learn anything new. You feel it when someone shares their pain. Instead of listening, you're already preparing advice. When your child shows you their drawing, instead of seeing, you're ready to correct. When life offers a moment of beauty, instead of receiving, you're reaching for your phone to capture it. But teacher, the scholar protested, I've worked hard for this knowledge. Years of study. Shouldn't I be proud? Be grateful, the Buddha suggested, but hold it lightly, like a bird in your hand. Grasp too tight, you kill it. Hold too loose, it flies away. But hold it gently, and it sings. The scholar sat quietly, watching his tea-stained robes. For the first time in years, he had no ready response. No quote to cite. No theory to expound. Just silence. And in that silence, something new stirred. This emptiness feels strange, he admitted. That's the beginning, the Buddha smiled. The not knowing is more honest than false certainty. The empty cup is ready to receive. The beginner's mind sees what the expert misses. Think about your own full cup. The assumptions about how life should be. The stories about who you are. The beliefs about what's possible. What if you could empty it? Even a little? What might pour in? Children know this secret. They approach each day with empty cups. Everything is new. Everything is possible. A cardboard box becomes a spaceship. A puddle becomes an ocean. They haven't yet learned what's impossible. But we adults, we're so full. Full of experience that says, be careful. Full of disappointments that say, don't hope. Full of knowledge that says, be realistic. And so we miss the magic. The tea overflows, but we keep pouring. How do I empty my cup? The scholar asked. Start by admitting it's full, the Buddha said. Then, instead of adding more, try subtracting. Instead of forming opinions, try wondering. Instead of knowing, try sensing. Let life surprise you again. The scholar looked different now. Softer. Less armored by answers. Will you teach me? He asked. And for the first time, it was a real question. Not a challenge or a test. Just sincere asking. Life teaches, the Buddha replied. I just point where to look. But you can only see with empty eyes. Fresh eyes. Eyes that don't already know what they're seeing. As you rest tonight, feel your own fullness. All the things you're sure about. All the ways life has to be. All the definitions of yourself you've collected. Feel how heavy they are, how they press down like stones. What if, just for tonight, you could set them down? What if you could be empty? Not empty of value, but empty of conclusions. Not empty of worth, but empty of proving. Just spacious. Just open. Just here. These parables aren't just ancient stories. They're happening now. You're the grieving mother, searching for the house without loss. You're the wounded man, overthinking instead of healing. You're the scholar, too full to receive. But you're also the one who finally understands, who finds community in shared sorrow, who learns to remove the arrow first, who discovers the freedom of not knowing. These stories live in you, teaching, healing, opening. Tomorrow, life will offer you mustard seeds. Arrows will fly. Cups will overflow. But perhaps you'll remember. Perhaps you'll pause. Perhaps you'll choose differently. Not perfectly, just differently. And in that difference, everything changes. The Buddha sat with a small group as evening descended. "Tonight," he said softly, "we walk together, not with our feet, but with awareness. Close your eyes. Let the journey begin." You're standing at the edge of a forest. Not any forest, but the one that lives in your heart. The trees are tall and patient. They've been waiting for you. They always wait. Take your first step onto the path. Feel the earth beneath your feet, soft with years of fallen leaves. Each step is cushioned by time. Each footfall a small greeting to the ground. The light filters through branches, green and gold, dancing. You've walked this path before, in dreams, in moments when the world felt too heavy. This is where you come to remember. Notice your breathing, how it naturally slows in this place. The forest breathes with you, in and out. The trees exhale what you need. You exhale what they need. Perfect reciprocity. A stream appears beside the path. You hear it before you see it. That gentle conversation water has with stones. No hurry. No agenda. Just flowing because that's what water does. You kneel beside the stream. The water is clear enough to see through. Clear enough to see your reflection, but also clear enough to see past it. To the smooth stones beneath. To the small fish darting like thoughts. This is your mind when it settles. Clear, but alive. Still, but flowing. You can see thoughts arise like bubbles from the bottom. Watch them surface and pop. No need to follow. No need to judge. The Buddha's voice comes gently. This stream flows to the ocean. Every stream does. No matter how it wins, how it pauses, how it falls. It finds its way. Trust your own flowing. You rise and continue walking. The path opens into a meadow. Wildflowers sway in unfelt breeze. Colors you've forgotten existed. Colors that have no names. Just pure expression of life's joy. In the center of the meadow, a single tree. Ancient. Its trunk so wide you couldn't wrap your arms around it. Its branches reaching in all directions, offering shade to anyone who needs it. You sit beneath this tree, your back against its bark. Feel its solidness, its rootedness. This tree has weathered countless storms, yet here it stands. Not despite the storms, but because of them. Each wind made it stronger. You are like this tree, the Buddha whispers, more resilient than you know. Your roots go deeper than your pain. Your branches reach higher than your fear. Rest here. Remember your strength. The sun is setting now, painting the sky in soft pastels, pink like compassion, orange like warmth, purple like mystery. The day letting go without struggle, teaching you how it's done. Birds return to their nests. Their evening songs a lullaby. Not the bright calls of morning, but gentle notes of settling. They know something you're learning. How to end a day with grace. How to trust the coming dark. As darkness deepens, stars emerge. First one, then another, then countless. They were always there. The sun's brightness just hid them. Like peace is always there. The day's noise just hides it. You lie back in the soft grass. The earth holds you, has always held you, will always hold you. No effort needed, just receiving this ancient support. Your body begins to release, starting with your feet. They've carried you so far. Let them rest. Feel them soften into the ground. Thank them for their service. Now they can just be. The release moves upward. Your legs that have stood so long. Your hips that have carried so much. Your belly, soft now. No need to hold anything in. No need to protect. Your chest opens like a flower. Heart beating its steady rhythm. Has never stopped. Will continue while you sleep. This faithful drummer, asking nothing. Just keeping time. Just keeping you. Your shoulders, oh, your shoulders. How much they've carried. Responsibilities like stones. Worries like water. Let them sink into the earth. The earth can take it. The earth transforms everything. Your arms, always doing. Always reaching, always holding. Tonight they can simply rest. Palms open to the stars. Nothing to grasp. Nothing to push away. Your neck, that bridge between thinking and feeling. Often tight with the effort of balance. Let it soften. Your head doesn't need holding. The earth has it. Trust the support. And your face, all the expressions it's worn today, smiles, frowns, concentration, worry. Let it all melt away. Return to neutral. Return to peace. The face you had before you learned to perform. The Buddha's presence is near, not as a person now, but as awareness itself. This is your true home, he says. Not the forest, though it's beautiful. Not the meadow, though it's peaceful. But this awareness that experiences it all. You've been looking for peace outside, he continues. In better circumstances. In others' approval. In tomorrow's achievements. But peace is your nature. Like wetness is water's nature. You can't find it because you are it. A gentle rain begins to fall, so soft you barely feel it. Like a blessing, like tears of joy. The earth receives each drop with gratitude, teaching you about acceptance. You don't need shelter from this rain. It's washing you clean. Not of dirt, but of trying. Not of earth, but of effort. Each drop a small reminder. Let go. Let go. Let go. The forest holds you in its embrace. The trees stand guard. The stream sings you towards sleep. The earth cradles your tiredness. You are not alone. Have never been alone. Cannot be alone. This journey happens every night, whether you notice or not. The walking into rest, the laying down of burdens, the return to source. Tonight you're just aware of it. And in this awareness, something shifts. The trying stops. The seeking rests. You're not going anywhere. You're not becoming anything. You're just being. Just beautifully, simply being. The Buddha's final whisper. When you wake tomorrow, remember, this peace goes with you. It's not in the forest. It's in you. The forest just helped you remember. Now let yourself drift, like a leaf on the stream, carried by currents you trust. No need to steer. No need to know the destination. The stream knows the way to the ocean, and you know the way to peace. It's the way of letting go, the way of trust, the way of remembering what you've always known, that you belong here, that you're part of everything. That peace isn't earned, it's recognized. Sleep now, if sleep comes. Rest now, if sleep doesn't. Either way, you're held. Either way, you're home. The journey continues, even in dreams. The teaching never stops. The love never leaves. As our time together draws to a close, the Buddha speaks one last time. Not from the past, but from the eternal present. Not as someone separate, but as the wisdom in your own heart. My friend, he says gently, you came seeking rest. But perhaps you've found something more. Perhaps you've found that rest isn't escape. It's coming home. You've traveled far tonight, through palace gardens and forest paths, through teachings ancient and eternal, through your own heart's landscape. And here you are, right where you started, but seeing it differently. The Buddha's greatest teaching wasn't about becoming someone else. It was about being who you are, fully, without apology, without pretense. Just this precious human being, flawed and perfect, struggling and free. Be a light unto yourself, he said as he was dying. Not, follow me. Not, believe what I say. But, trust your own light. The light that brought you here tonight. The light that seeks truth even in darkness. You have that light. It's flickering right now in your chest. That small flame of awareness, sometimes hidden by the winds of worry, sometimes dimmed by the fog of fatigue, but never extinguished, never gone. Tomorrow you'll wake to the same life, the same challenges, the same patterns wanting to reassert themselves, but you'll wake different. Not dramatically, just slightly, like a compass adjusted by 1 degree, a small shift that changes everything over time. You might remember the old man, and aging won't feel so frightening. You might remember impermanence, and loss won't grip so tightly. You might remember the middle way, and extremes won't call so loudly. You might remember your breath, and anxiety won't own you completely. Or you might forget it all. And that's okay too. Because what matters isn't the words. It's the space they've created, the softening they've allowed, the permission they've given to be human, to be imperfect, to be enough. The Buddha's compassion extends through time to touch you now. Dear one, he whispers, stop trying so hard. Stop pushing against life. You are the ocean, not just the wave. You are the sky, not just the cloud. Rest in your vastness. Let these words sink deep, past thought, past understanding, into the place where truth lives. The place that knows without knowing, that trusts without evidence, that loves without reason. You are blessed, not because you're special, but because you're not. You're just like everyone else, carrying the same hopes, fighting the same battles. And that's the blessing. You're part of the great human family, never alone, never cast out. May you sleep tonight held by this truth. May your dreams be gentle teachers. May you wake tomorrow with a softer heart. May you remember, if only for a moment, that peace is possible. Not someday, not when everything's perfect, but now, in this imperfect, beautiful life. May you be free from suffering, not by avoiding it, but by understanding it. May you be free from fear, not by becoming fearless, but by making friends with uncertainty. May you be free from hatred, not by forcing love, but by seeing clearly. And when you forget, as you will, when you fall back into old patterns, as you must, may you remember the Buddha's smile, not judging, not disappointed, just understanding. Of course, he says, you're human. Begin again. This is the final blessing. Not perfection, but permission to begin again. 10,000 times. 10 million times. Each moment a fresh start. Each breath a new birth. Go now into your rest, carrying nothing, needing nothing, being everything. The Buddha bows to the Buddha in you. The light honors the light. The peace recognizes itself. Sleep well, dear friend. You are loved. You are held. You are enough. Just as you are. Right where you are. Forever and always. This is the way. This is the truth. This is the blessing